Yipee-Ki-Yay Mr. Falcon.
Welcome back, fuckers. This is Yipee-Ki-Yay Mr. Falcon. We're coming at you today with good movies with bad endings. Now, this isn't shitty movies that have really shitty endings. These are decent to good movies that just really shit the bed at the very last minute. And I should also clarify that a bad ending doesn't mean that you didn't like it. It doesn't mean that you thought it was sad. It doesn't mean that you think it left you unfulfilled, or that you don't like that the story didn't come to a neat, tidy conclusion. These are just bad, shitty, poorly written, poorly thought out endings. Yeah. So there it is. Like a good example is The Mist. If you don't like the ending to that movie, that's really your problem. It's a fantastic ending. It's a sad ending. It's a downbeat ending. It's a kick you in the balls ending, but it's a good ending. And if you can't dig that, you shouldn't talk about movies, I don't think. You can fight me on that. I don't care. Welcome back, Tom. How the hell are you?
I'm wonderful, Dave.
Excellent. What the hell have you been watching lately?
Oh man, not a lot.
No.
I went through the life. It's there's really like time for one show right now, and that's True Detective. That's like all I've been watching. We're rewatching season 1 and catching season 4 of the new ones as they come out.
Yeah, as we're recording this, the 4th season of True Detective Night Country is airing with Jodie Foster. I'm watching it too. I don't know how I feel about it yet.
Yeah, I'm on the fence. There are parts that are pretty cool, and then it's doing a thing that I don't know if I like, but it's doing it.
Well, the biggest problem with every subsequent season of that show is that people are comparing it to, and it has to try to live up to, the first season. And the first season is like, I don't know, what is that, 8 episodes?
8, yeah.
That's like an 8-hour long, incredible movie. And I don't know if it was a fluke. I don't know if that season was just, they had the perfect cast with just the right script and just the right director. The writer directed that, Nick Pizzolatto, right?
No, I don't think he directed it. The guy that
didn't direct it.
It's Cary Fukunaga, I think is the guy's
name.
Oh,
right. And Nick wrote it, though, right?
He wrote it.
Yeah, okay. Well, whatever magic potion they found for that season, they've been trying to recapture it, and they just haven't been able to. And this season started off really strong, and I just don't. I don't know. The dialogue's pretty janky. I mean, it all depends on how this story comes together, because everything's up in the air. But we'll report back later, I guess.
Yeah, in progress.
Okay, so we posted these not in the order in which we recorded them. So if you want to hear what we both had to say about True Detective Night Country, just go back a few episodes if you didn't hear it. Episode 3, we break down our favorite serial killer movies, but we start by tearing into season 4 of True Detective a little bit. So, yeah, it wasn't great. So head on over there to episode 3 if you want to hear what we thought about it. Today, we're talking about good to decent movies with really fucking bad endings.
Yeah.
And in some cases, these movies are only decent because their ending dragged it down. In some cases, the filmmakers got a second chance. and got to go back to the editing room and fix their sins, or the sins of others, the sins of the studio, the sins of the studio. But in a lot of cases they didn't, and it's a shame. It's a shame. It's just a crying shame.
Oh man, somebody meddled, and it didn't work.
And endings are hard. I mean, endings are hard, whether it's a book, a movie, sometimes even a song. Musicians got that wonderful cop-out for so long they could just, fade out. I don't think songs really do that anymore, do they? But I always hated that. I always hated that when you had like this rockin' song and that's how it ended. It was just a fucking fade out like it was on the radio. Journey used to do that all the time. A lot of Journey songs fade out, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. I was never a big Journey fan, but yeah, they did.
Do you like the fade out, Tom?
Nah.
As a guitarist?
No. I what's the term? I don't like the end wankery at the end of Freebird where it's like and they slam the same chord, but I like to strike a happy medium. The fade out, no, but definitely not just slamming a guitar on the same chord for 2 minutes.
What was that term?
End
wankery?
End wankery.
End wankery. Is that a musicology term?
Sure. When you're talking about Freebird, yeah. Guitar players are famous for making up especially when they talk about tone, it's like, oh yeah, this tone is real beefy and crunchy and saucy and it's got a real slick
crunchy, I know.
Slick vibe,
Hey, speaking of Freebird and nifty movie trivia, Wayne's World?
Yes.
In the guitar store, the epic, the no Freebird sign.
Oh yeah. Or no
Freebird.
No stairway.
No stairway. Fuck, I fucked this all up. The story doesn't work now.
Sorry.
Fuck it, we're talking about bad endings. Fuck Freebird, fuck Stairway. He was originally supposed to play Stairway, but they couldn't get the fucking rights to it.
Oh.
So they changed it
to
No Stairway, denied. Because if you notice, when he starts playing guitar, those are not the first notes of Stairway.
Right.
They're just some random fucking nonsense. That's why.
Oh,
that was the big fucking story. But we were
not
talking
know
about Freebird and not Stairway to Heaven. I got to quit drinking.
Let's get back on topic here.
All right. Well, I'm going to nominate the first one.
All right.
A good movie, was a classic for a lot of us growing up of our age. Superman, the original Superman, 1978, with Christopher Reeve in the blue tights and red underwear. What was the tagline? The movie that'll make you believe a man can fly, right?
Yeah.
And it looked okay. The takeoffs and landings looked a little goofy, but it was fine. And especially when you were a kid, it looked really cool. It's an origin story. It's a comic book movie when there were no comic book movies. It's kind of the first one, really, that they ever made. You might be able to find some other examples if you go back and you start stretching it, but there had been no real Batman movies yet, unless you want to count the one from the 60s, based the TV show movie.
The Adam West one?
Yeah. Weren't you a fan of that one? I kind of remember that being in your, in your collection.
I had that on DVD, and when you popped it in, you just hear Robin go, "Holy interactive menus, Batman." And Adam West is, "It appears to be some kind of a menu navigation system." That was just a menu of fucking brilliant.
That show reminds me of college because when I lived in my apartment, I had like the most basic of basic cable packages, and whatever channel they used to run reruns of that on, I had that channel. When you're in college, you have weird schedules, you're home weird times, and I used to be home on weekdays to catch a couple episodes of the old Batman show. Man, that was I don't know, man, I never really understood camp that much. Like I guess I get it in theory, but I can only take so fucking much of it. But this film was in earnest. This was a serious film. It was meant for adults. I mean, Richard Donner was directing it. It had fucking Marlon Brando was in it, and that was
Oh
like,
yeah, he was
Yeah.
Jor-El.
yep, and that was the big selling point for it at the time because this was 1978. You know, The Godfather had just been a huge, huge, huge hit. You know, Brando's career was in a second, upswing, maybe a third if you really want to, break it down.
Yeah.
But getting him was a huge get, and they paid him something crazy, like $2 million for like a day of shooting, I think. You know, he's only in those few scenes in the very beginning on Krypton and in the flashbacks, or whatever you want to call them, the crystal movies, whatever. There was more footage that wasn't used. It was intended for Superman 2. But they didn't end up using it, and some of it is in that Richard Donner cut. If you ever get a chance to see it, it's worth it.
Right.
But this movie was a big deal. They had Gene Hackman was Lex Luthor.
I loved Gene Hackman in that movie.
Ned, yeah, he's Gene Hackman is. When is he
wonderful.
not awesome? And I got to give him credit, man. It's really cool that an actor of his caliber just like kind of retired. He was just like, "Yep, I'm done." I had like an amazing career spanning decades, this huge filmography, and he just kind of been, I'm just going to enjoy being an old man.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? I guess some guys like to keep making movies, like grizzled old Clint Eastwood, who apparently is making another movie that's going to be coming out soon.
Oh boy.
But not Hackman. So Superman, it's his origin story. It starts with him as a baby, going all the way up to adulthood in Metropolis, meeting Margot Kidder, who played Lois Lane, and then he faces off against Lex Luthor, who I think has a plot to use stolen nuclear missiles to cause an earthquake that will cause California to fall into the ocean. And he bought all the land that will be the new West Coast.
Oh yeah.
It's a comic booky plan, but it's a comic book movie. And
Yeah,
it's
it was the
Lex
comic
Luthor.
book movie.
Did you watch this a lot, I assume?
Oh, I
growing
loved
up,
it.
right?
Yeah, I loved
Yeah.
it when I was a kid.
Yeah. By the time we were old enough to watch them, there were 4 of them by then, right? I think all 4 of the Christopher Reeve ones had come out. The first one was absolutely the best. I watched the second one a lot, too, to be true. I probably watched the Richard Pryor one more times than I should admit. I didn't know they were bad. I didn't know 3 and 4 were so bad
you don't
when I
know
was
any
a little
better.
kid. I just liked Christopher Reeve will forever be Superman to me. I don't care how many different people they put in the suit, but Brandon Routh was pretty good as far as a successor. I think he had the look. I liked him as Superman. That was not a good movie, but I liked him as Superman.
Yeah, he was good.
Well, this original Superman is great all the way to the very, very end. And if you don't remember how this movie ends, it's mocked all the time because it's so fucking goofy. The earthquake happens. Like, Superman isn't able to stop every one of the missiles. One of them gets through, right? And doesn't cause the whole earthquake, but causes an earthquake. Lois Lane just so happens to be where a big fault line breaks open. Her car falls in. She gets buried, right? After saving a whole bunch of people and stopping explosions and fixing train tracks and all kinds of shit, Superman shows up, finds Lois dead. He bellows to the skies, and it echoes and shit. It's great. And my man straight up flies up into space and starts doing laps around the planet Earth.
Counter to the Earth's rotation.
Yes, and the momentum of this human-sized projectile is going so fast that he actually spins the Earth in the opposite direction, which I didn't know this, but if you were somehow able to do that, that reverses time.
Yep. I mean, like Doc Brown had it all wrong all this time. He didn't need to go 88 miles an hour. He needed to just go the opposite way at a zillion miles an hour.
I mean, I'm not a planet doctor. I'm not a script. I'm not a script writer, but a screenwriter. But how the fuck do you have this come up in a meeting? Like, yeah, what was the meeting like in the writer's room when they're like, how are we going to put a cherry on top of this Superman film? And someone was like, I know. Like,
no. Let me give you an alternate thing of the boardroom. Imagine them sitting there like, I don't know, man. Maybe he goes. Maybe they go back and they had to have been stoned out of their gourds to think that was like anyway. Because Superman is trying to stop all this bad stuff that's happening from the earthquake, right? Do you know how much more catastrophic things would be if someone managed to stop the Earth's rotation and then reverse it? The world would fly apart.
And not to mention the fact that when he stops doing his laps, the Earth just starts spinning in the correct direction again, with no assistance or anything. I don't think that's how any. I mean, fuck it. It was 1978. They were probably like, we're making a comic book movie. They're lucky we took it this seriously.
Yeah. They thought it was just going to be a bunch of 8-year-olds watching it.
So Superman does this. He spins the world backwards in time, just enough to bring Lois back to life, but somehow not enough to undo all the other shit he did that saved people.
Right.
We're gonna just put a pin in that. And then he flies back down to Earth and Lois is alive. It's fucking lame.
Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. None of it works in any way. And it's just funny. Like, we all buy the fact that, like, yeah, he's a spaceman. Yeah, he can fly. Yeah, he has the strength of, unlimited strength and cold breath and laser eyes. But then he does that, and you're like, no, you can't do that.
Well, that's always the problem with Superman, that especially in live action, and even in the comic books, too, it's a joke, right? That he just comes up with new powers whenever the story requires it, you know? And, I mean, yeah, you can say the same thing about Batman. You know, he comes up with a new gadget whenever the story requires it, but that's kind of his shtick.
Yeah.
Superman's just always been overpowered. You know, he needs to be nerfed somehow. And I thought they did a cool job with that in that first movie, like the kryptonite necklace.
Oh, yeah, they do nerf him big time.
I mean, that worked. Miss Tessmacher, she saved the world.
Yeah.
Got a Superman smooch. Because without her, I mean, Superman fucked up, dude. I mean, Lex beat his ass. He would have died in that stupid pool. Okay. Also, Lex Luthor had an incredibly badass supervillain lair.
That was pretty cool.
That almost balances out the weird, stupid ending. But that's definitely one of the worst endings tacked on to a really good and classic film and extremely classic superhero comic book movie. So yeah, that's that one.
Yeah, and the funny part is, I think even when I was a little kid and accepted whatever you put on the screen, Ninja Turtles, sure, Flying Man, yeah, of course. He did that, and even in my little 8-year-old brain, I was thinking wait a minute, that doesn't work. It's just
such a cop out. I mean, no matter what the device is that rewinds time, it's a super cop out. It removes the stakes of the entire movie, right? Mm-hmm. Because the worst happens. He doesn't quite make it. He chooses to save innocent people over the person who he cares about, which is a noble sacrifice. But it ends up meaning nothing because he just erases it. He just retcons it. So
right.
It's like you get the feeling the studio may have seen an original, slightly darker ending and been like, hey guys, this is a fucking superhero movie. We can't have Superman leaving people wanting to kill themselves.
Right.
Like this is a Zack Snyder movie or something. So they toned it down, and this is what they came up with. But regardless, they could have, they could have come up with something better, you know. Yeah, they could have come up with something better.
Anything.
And I think people will always fucking make fun of that movie for that and that device, that plot device, and it's a shame because it's a good flick. It's a good flick. And it made an entire generation know Christopher Reeve. And I don't know how famous he would have been without that role.
He was Superman.
Yep. All right, your turn.
Okay, so my submission for good movie, bad ending is none other than 1979's The Warriors, directed by Walter Hill. And for people who haven't seen it, it's kind of a crazy concept and a crazy movie. It's about a bunch of like a huge meeting of all the gangs in this like futuristic fictional version of New York that's overrun with just like thousands of gangs. And this one guy, his name's Cyrus. He's the leader of the biggest gang of all, the Gramercy Riffs, and he calls this big meet to get everybody together. No weapons, no beefs, no turf. Just come and listen to this grand vision. And he says, we got the cops outnumbered 5-1. If we band together, this city is ours. And we can take it. It's there for the taking. It's a great scene. And it's got that iconic line where he's talking to the group of people there. And he starts going, can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it? You know, it's awesome.
Such a weird movie, man.
Yeah. And then, because we have to drive the plot forward, someone kills Cyrus in the middle of this meet, and they frame this little-known gang from Coney Island called the Warriors, and they say it was them, it was the Warriors, and then everyone's out to get them. And the movie is them having to fight their way back through this ridiculous number of gangs to get home to their safety in their hometown of Coney Island, where like they own the turf and they can escape, right? And the movies, I like it. It's just like an underdog movie. They're being beset on all sides by these groups of people that are out to kill them. And it's got lots of fights and, these really cool set piece fights and all that. There's all this lore with the different gangs, and some of them are a little goofy, but all these different gangs come out of the woodwork to try to take down the Warriors. And they make it back to Coney Island. And the whole time I'm thinking, man, why did that guy kill Cyrus? And the actor, you know who he is. It's David Patrick Kelly, is the leader of a gang called the Rogues. And he was T-Bird in The Crow. He's the cleaner in John Wick.
Yeah, he's been a character actor for a long, long time.
Yeah.
He's the one who does the thing with the bottles, right?
Yeah.
On his fingers.
Warriors come out to play. Yeah, he's great. He's creepy. He shoots Cyrus, and the whole time they're running, I'm like, man, why did he kill Cyrus? Why did he kill Cyrus? What was the reason? It caused this huge uproar. It sounded like a pretty good plan. Like, why would someone do that? And they get back to Coney Island. They're squaring off with the Rogues and Luther, and they literally ask that same question. And they go, the guy, his name was they all had like cool gang nicknames, and the one guy's name was Swan. And he goes, why'd you do it? Why'd you waste Cyrus? And I was like, oh my, they're going to tell us. They're going to tell us. And then David Patrick Kelly, who's a great actor, this is a great performance from him. And I'm getting ready to get the answer to my question. And no lie, he says, no reason. I just like doing things like that. And I almost threw my remote through the TV because I saw this like many years after it came out. It's like, what? What do you mean, no reason? It was the most outraged I've ever been.
It just ends after that, right?
Well, yeah, right after that, like the Gramercy riffs, like the real powerful gang that are trying to avenge Cyrus, they show up and they're like, you warriors are good, real good, and then they're like, we'll take care of him, and they just descend upon him, and he screams. They don't even ask him like, why'd you do it? They're like, you just hear him go, no. He like screams because he's presumably being killed, and like that's it. But credits. Joe Walsh plays the song to roll the credits, and I'm sitting there with my hands in my head like, what?
It's fucking terrible.
I
man.
don't get to know, and it sucks because that movie's cool. I mean, have you seen it?
I've seen it. I did not grow up watching it like I know a lot of people did, because I mean it was. Obviously, it came out in '78. It was out and available when we were little. But I remember watching it, and maybe it was because of the ending, but I just didn't care. Like, I didn't understand why people liked it so much. And I kind of felt like there's not a lot of story there, man. I mean, I guess if you're young and like the gangs, be it all the... their accoutrement and their different lore and shit, like you said, is kind of neat in a comic booky, video gamey kind of way. But man, yeah, that I remember the ending being fucking terrible, and yeah, it's that's just about as bad as I remember. That's fucking horrible, man.
And it sucks too because like there are people borrow a lot from that movie. And like you say, it's not really heavy on story, but there are other examples like John Wick isn't real heavy on story,
that's true.
But the point of those movies is like the spectacle, and they literally nod directly to Warriors in John Wick 4 when they like the final set piece in Paris when they have that radio DJ and she's like, okay, all you pros out there, this song's for you. And she's like calling out the hit in coded language, and they do that real close-up shot of her mouth in front of the microphone. That is like a direct callback to the Warriors. It's the same setup. There's some DJ. I'm talking to all you boppers out there, and she's calling out the hit on the Warriors, and she starts playing like the songs that are, somehow related to what's going on.
I mean, and that whole thing is kind of the setup of John Wick 2, right? That he's in New York, and all of a sudden there's a hit out on him.
Yeah.
All these different hitmen are coming at him from every fucking different direction, and they all have their own little Russians or, giant sumo wrestler guy or whatever the fuck they happen to be.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right, I get it.
And
I just guess I don't remember the fights, and I don't remember the action being that good, but maybe it's just been a while.
It's not particularly good by today's standards. You watch.
It was good for the time when you were a kid. Yeah,
it was good for the time, and it was different. And there was a lot of, like I said, there's all these different. Every like neighborhood they went to had a different flavor of gang, and they were like ridiculous too. Like there was the Lizzies that were like an all-girl gang. There was the baseball furies, those dudes that painted their face up and they ran around in baseball uniforms.
Well, that was the era of weird fucking street gangs. Like every street gang in a movie was some like turned up to 11 punk rock kind of thing or something, or they all wore matching costumes, or I remember in the Duet Death Wish movies they do that a lot. There's maybe Death Wish 4, and there's a street gang that they shave the middle of their head and leave the tufts on the side like the dude from Prodigy, and they wear face paint. Like I don't know, I don't know what they were thinking back then, man.
But hey man, art imitates life, and there are some weird friggin' gangs. And when they filmed that movie, like legend has it, they actually had to pay off like real gangs that were they had a real street gang that they paid to protect their.
Well, they really
their
filmed it in New
vans.
York?
Yeah, they filmed on location.
Oh, so they
And
filmed it in demilitarized zone,
yeah, like
shithole 1978 New York.
yeah, it was like the purge basically. And then
Yeah.
they had a gang that was paid to protect all their shit. Some street gang called the Mongrels, and they were just a real deal gang. And but they got fucked with constantly by real gangs that would come in and like steal their stuff or rampage through the set or like destroy their set pieces and things like that. It was a nightmare to make from what I hear, and a lot of them were mad because they weren't involved. And so that scene where Cyrus is going, "Can you dig it?" They couldn't afford all those extras. They're real gang members that they just like.
Really?
Yeah, there are a lot of them are real gang members, and there were so many of them in the same spot that it made the real police very nervous about like this is a bad idea. And they actually had undercover cops, like dressed up as gang members, like show up and dot themselves around this huge,
free extras.
this huge group of, career criminals that were all gathered by the hundreds in one spot for this scene, which is crazy when you think about it. You're like, no one would do that today. Like, just get a bunch of real gangs and stick them on camera.
If you ever want to see what those parts in New York really look like, the worst parts, the deserted, bombed out looking parts, there's a movie called Wolfen from 1981. It's actually a really underrated movie with Albert Finney, and there's actually a few names in it. Albert Finney's in it, Edward James Olmos when he was really young, Gregory Hines, Tom Noonan. Our man Tom Noonan keeps coming up. Tooth Fairy from Manhunter and Frankenstein from the Monster Squad. He was in it when he was really young. It's a neat take on a werewolf movie. It's not a werewolf movie at all. It's not, but it kind of is. I don't know. It's complicated, but it takes place in the boroughs of New York when they were at their worst, and in the old projects as they were being demolished for new everything, and they actually got to film some of the implosions, and it's part of the plot. So it's really neat. It's really a really neat time capsule movie, and I don't know. It had a lot of innovative. It was the first movie to use heat thermal imaging cameras.
Okay.
And they used it for the wolf vision, for better or worse. But they were the first to try it, and it's kind of neat. So Wolfen. Not a great name. I even read the novel, and it's fucking terrible.
Wait, like WOLFN or like wolfing
EN.
without the G?
EN.
Oh,
WOLFEN. Wolfen. The Wolfening. I don't know what it's supposed to fucking mean, but they should have changed the title. I don't know why they kept it. That's the title of the book, too, and apparently it was a bestseller, and it is bad. All right, I got one real quick, and it'll be, I mean, this one kind of deviates because I don't know how good of a movie it is to begin with, but Halloween Kills from 2021 by David Gordon Green. I guess the way I'm looking at it is the 2018 one was solid. Halloween, the one
decent.
with Jamie Lee Curtis. Yeah, I mean, for what it was, it retconned the whole batch of sequels. It brought back Jamie Lee Curtis to the series again. I mean, I liked H2O, which did the same exact thing, but just earlier and different. But it was a good take. I liked what they did with Michael Myers. It was a fun movie. I liked it when it came out. I watched it a bunch of times. I was a little concerned, but psyched that they were doing a sequel, I guess. I was happy with Halloween 2018 ending this new timeline, right, that they came up with. So I look at this whole movie, Halloween Kills, as a bad ending tacked on to that movie. Because this
Okay.
movie fucking sucked. Like, I don't know, the fireman scene in the beginning with the burning house is kind of cool.
Yeah, that was
I mean,
cool.
I never saw that shit before. That was kind of neat. But beyond that, man, it just got cornier and cornier and cornier until it got to that ending where, man, I don't even know what the hell happened.
Don't they
It's-
all like? What did they all like gang up on him, right, in the street?
Yeah, so all the angry parents, led by Tommy Doyle, who's now an adult, they all surround Michael Myers in the street, and they start beating him and stabbing him. And I think he has been shot several times leading up to this point. And again, this movie retconned all the later sequels. He's not supposed to be supernatural or anything in any way, right? Like, he is insane and can ignore pain, apparently, but he's not supposed to be immortal. And these people do horrible, like, what they do to him would have killed him if he
Oh
was
yeah,
a
they
person.
fuck him up good.
And then with like this crazy voiceover going on over top of it, talking about how evil he is, he just stands up and just starts killing all these people that are surrounding him with his knife, which he still has, apparently. And like, they do it in this like cross-faded kind of, I don't even know what the fuck to call it. Like, they didn't show it. They just showed slashing and killing, and everyone's dead all of a sudden. And then it just kind of ends. Like, he just vanishes.
Yeah, he just fucks off into the night.
It's so fucking ridiculous. Like, like, of all the ways to end it. And then if you do this, to make the horrible life choice of watching the third one, Halloween Ends, you find out that he went and crawled into a goddamn sewer and ends up like living in the sewer like Master Splinter or some shit. They basically repeated the dumb shit endings from the original shitty sequels. Like, because there's that one where the whole town and sheriff's department blast Michael Myers away with a giant volley of gunfire, and he like falls into a fucking creek. And then in the next movie, you find out he's been living like under a bridge with a homeless guy for a year recovering. It's the same fucking thing. It's the same. Fuck it. Jesus, that's a terrible fucking ending to, and it ruined, those movies together ruined the 2018 one for me.
Yeah, it sort of taints the well for like the whole comeback.
Yeah, dude, it sucked. It sucked. All right, so on to a truly great movie that originally had a terrible ending,
Yeah.
but was allowed to be redeemed through various director's cuts until I think it's finally in a good place. It's, of course, Blade Runner from 1982, director Ridley Scott, starring Harrison Ford, Rutger Hauer, and Sean Young. I think it's been forever since I've seen the original version. I don't even know if you can get it anywhere. But as far as I can remember, the original Blade Runner theatrical cut started with a voiceover from Harrison Ford, right? And it ended with one. And so everyone remembers when Rutger Hauer dies,
Oh yeah.
which
Epic.
that's almost at the end. You know, that's the whole, tears in the rain speech and all that. Dies on the rooftop, fucking after the big fight. Awesome. So originally, after that, Deckard, which is Harrison Ford, runs away with Rachel, Sean Young, and they leave the city happily in a car and just kind of implied happily ever after. And we get this voiceover from Deckard who explains that Rachel, who by then we know is a replicant, or android or whatever you want to call it for people who haven't seen it or don't remember it too well. These replicants in this movie have a predetermined lifespan, depending on what they are and what they're meant to do. And once that predetermined lifespan is up, they die, essentially. It's to keep them from, like, overtaking humanity. And in this voiceover, he says that she has outlived her predetermined lifespan, yet has not died. So it's implying that she somehow broke the cycle and...
Well, she's like the new model.
Yeah, like she's exempt from that limitation of the replicants. So they are able to ride off into the sunset, you know? And after such a dark, tonally dark movie, I mean, it's not quite dystopian, but it's not a cheery, happy sci-fi movie. There's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of murder.
It's a noir film.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a sci-fi, like cyberpunky kind of noir film. I don't know, it's just, I'm not the only one, of course, who has a problem with that ending, and they ended up changing it for the subsequent director's cut releases that came out on DVD, but it just never, it doesn't seem to fit to me.
Have you ever heard the voiceover?
Yeah, it's bad.
Oh my! You can hear like the hatred in Harrison Ford's voice for what they're making him read. You know, just like he's. It's like they have a gun to his head. He's just like, you can hear him go, "I didn't know how long we'd have together. Gaff, let her go," and he just sounds miserable. And I know it's like that. It's kind of a dour movie up to that point, but man, yeah, he sounds like he's ready to walk off the set. It's bad.
It's amazing this movie got such a big following with that really shit tacked on ending. So when they changed it, Ridley Scott, the first time he changed it was the in the early 90s. He put out a director's cut, which would have been on VHS at the time. And he got rid of the voiceovers entirely and changed the ending. So he got rid of the scene of them leaving the city together, and instead, they return to Deckard's apartment. You know, he leads her to the elevator, and they see an origami unicorn sitting there, assumingly left behind by that dude Gaff, who's Edward James Olmos, who he always folded origami and left it places. And and they also added a dream sequence where Deckard dreams about a unicorn. So there's some symbology there. And it was long suspected that Deckard was a replicant himself. And this new ending, goes toward confirming that. And, you know, Ridley Scott has said that Deckard is a replicant, right? And the sequel kind of builds on that as being the interpretation. Otherwise, it wouldn't really work.
Right.
But, man, yeah, that's... I couldn't imagine seeing that movie in the theater and being drawn into this such an immersive science fiction world and then having that bullshit ending after Roy's death, too. You know, like, they should have just ended it there.
Yeah, that scene's incredible.
Like, I understand a studio does what studios do, but, man, if they should have just ended it right after the fight. You know, I don't really even know why they bothered tacking something on. But, yeah, that's definitely one of the... Go ahead.
I think, like... I think they tacked that on because, like, they always had the intention to show that Deckard was a replicant. They build on it. They mention it throughout the movie.
Yeah.
They allude to it, and if you've read the book, they allude to it as well. And I think, I think the ending, I think that's how they wanted it originally, and the producers were like, it wasn't clear enough, and so they hastily made that other ending to make it more palatable.
Well, I know that definitely for a fact that the intro voiceover, the studio made Ford do that because they were afraid audiences wouldn't understand.
Right.
what was going on.
They don't trust us.
Because it's really dumb. Like the voiceover, like you said, it's stupid. Like it's poorly written. Ford didn't want to do it. I know they dragged him into the booth to record it like well after the film wrapped. So yeah, that's just one of the all-time shitty endings.
Well, here's a little trivia about that too. The ending that they tacked on with them driving off into the sunset, like through the forest.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of aerial shots of like the forest, like their road that they're driving through. And do you know where they got that footage?
Was it extra footage from The Shining?
Yeah. Yeah, you do know that. Yeah, they just had it
tell you, man.
left over.
That footage and then the footage flying through the clouds that they did for Superman was reused so many times. You know, all that, I'm pretty sure, I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure all that cloud footage that you see in the beginning of Back to the Future 2 is from Superman, from the original Superman.
Right. Yeah, they just reused all that stuff.
Well, filming something like that was so expensive at the time.
Yeah, you needed a helicopter.
Yeah, I think they actually used a small plane for the Superman cloud footage. But yeah, the stuff that you can get with a $50 drone today, yeah, you needed aircraft and fuel and the cameras.
And permission from the FAA.
Yeah, and a stable enough day, good enough weather, and stable enough weather to film smooth, good, and in clear weather too, right? You know?
Yeah.
The kids, they just don't know. All right, so on to another classic. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, 1960. Yeah, Anthony Perkins, Janet Leigh, Vera Miles. Just a film classic. You know, no introduction really needed. But it has an iconic final shot, okay, that a lot of people remember, and the still from it is kind of a horror movie icon image of Norman Bates just sitting there looking super fucking crazy, right? And that final shot, he has that internal monologue where he's talking about how he wouldn't even hurt a fly, and there's a fly on his hand. He's like, I'm not even going to swat it because I'm fucking nuts. That's great. That is the final shot. That is technically the ending. But if you remember before that scene, there is a really weird, out of place, just exposition dump from The Shrink. Do you remember this?
Vaguely, yeah. Like he's been detained. You know, the climax of the movie's happened, and I remember the Shrink giving an explanation to like someone. I don't remember quite what he says though.
Yeah, there's this huge buildup. You know, we find out that he's been dressing up as his mother and killing people this whole time, and that his mom is a skeleton that he hangs out with, and maybe diddles. I don't know. Yeah. We're not sure.
As one does.
As one does. Huge crescendo. And then we get like this 5-minute long fucking scene in a shrink's office where some shrink we've never met before explains to a couple of the characters who were still left, Vera Miles and I think the other guy and the cops, what exactly mentally is wrong with Norman Bates. And it's all these dated, like 1960s psychology terms that nobody uses anymore.
Oh yeah, totally antiquated.
Yeah, I mean it's like things about split personality disorder and Freudian Oedipus complex stuff, and you know it's just so unnecessary. And I'm not really sure why it's done. I mean, maybe at the time, the concepts in the movie, these concepts of split personalities, of assuming the personality of someone else, of just all the weird shit that's in this movie and that Norman Bates does, I guess it was so out of the blue as far as pop culture goes that Hitchcock decided it needed some kind of grounding in reality, like saying to the audience, yeah, this seems fucking crazy, but we didn't actually make this up out of thin air. Like, these are actual psychological conditions just taken to an extreme.
Yeah, I guess if you consider what you said, what that was 1960, right?
Yeah, well, it came out in 60,
Yeah.
so probably filmed in 59-ish.
Right, and you think of like the lens through which you view that. Like, imagine seeing that in the theater, right? And like
Yeah.
I saw it after I'd already watched, Silence of the Lambs. I saw that movie after I saw, Freddy Krueger butcher people in their sleep. And so, like, imagine being, a 50s kid or, person or whatever, and like no one had ever filmed anything like that. And so you're thinking to yourself, like, this person can't possibly exist. And then I guess that's what the doctor's for. It's like, well, you see, he suffers from, and all the stuff that he lists off.
And just for context, this is a movie that had to fight the censorship board so that they could have a scene of where a toilet is flushed.
Yeah, that's right.
It is the first movie that actually not only showed a toilet, which was kind of verboten at the time too, believe it or not, but actually showed a toilet being flushed when she flushes the letter down. And apparently Hitchcock got that through because he argued that it was essential to the plot. That's what he was dealing with in making a movie about a guy who dresses up like his own mother and stabs women using his mother's voice while he moves her petrified corpse to different places around his house. Like, it's kind of fucking crazy this movie ever even got made.
At that time,
when it got made. So, I'm going to forgive the exposition dump, and especially since it's not the final shot of the movie, and because that final shot is so good.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's a little dated. The expo dump is a little dated at this point, but we can forgive Hitch, I think.
I think he thought he needed it because he knew his audience. That movie wasn't made for us, who've been desensitized to all that shit. This was made for people who were like, didn't know that someone that crazy could exist in the world.
For real. And I mean, it started a genre. It opened the floodgates because it snapped people's imagination awake because of just what you said. It opened up the possibility, right? And psychology was still in its infancy. It was still considered a pseudoscience by a lot of people, and most what anybody knew about psychology was just Freud, analysis, that kind of shit. So adding it, even mixing it with law enforcement, was kind of a novel concept at the time. For films. So, yeah, dude, it's incredible. And it's just an incredible movie. And it makes the fact that they remade it in the 90s, shot for shot, even weirder. Don't ever watch that.
Yeah,
Jesus
it's
Christ.
not good.
Vince Vaughn and Anne Hesh, I think, right?
Yeah, Anne Hesh. Hesh. I don't know.
R.I.P.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's gone. Yeah,
I forgot about that.
Pour one out for Anne. 7 days and 7 nights. It was
Oh, God.
I kind of like that movie, actually.
I hated that movie.
I know everyone did except
Come
me. That's one of
on.
my guilty pleasure movies. I don't know. It's all right. You know what other movie isn't all right? I Am Legend.
Oh, yeah. I hated that movie.
They're coming out with another one, so strap in.
Wait,
Will
like
Smith is still
a sequel or a remake?
a sequel. Will Smith is still trying to hump his career back into sentience. It's probably not going to go so well, I don't think. I can't imagine it would, right?
I don't know. I don't know how.
Well,
how long's it been? What year
Well,
did
this 07 already. This
Oh,
movie came out
man.
in 07, man. It's been a minute. And it kind of rode that wave of zombie movies when Walking Dead was super popular and Dawn of the Dead had just come out not too long before, and Shaun of the Dead. And
Shaun of the Dead.
there was that huge zombie craze that lasted for like 5 or 6 years, and I mean they're still making Walking Dead shows. They got spin-offs and shit now. And it's a shame because this book is fantastic. Same name, I Am Legend. It's an incredible book. And this actually isn't the first time this book was adapted for the screen. There was a movie in 1971 called The Omega Man with Charlton Heston. And it basically borrows the setup. It's the same setup. Guy left alone, New York City. Well, the Omega Man takes place in L.A., but the Omega Man sucks. It's not a good movie.
Oh, man.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to say it's not worth watching. It's from that. It's very much of that era. It's 71. It's very leftover 60s, like Technicolor, fucking just weird, off-kilter sci-fi stuff with Charlton Heston wearing weird bandanas around his throat, running around saying Charlton Heston shit. And it's, the Time Machine with the Morlocks?
Yeah, H.G. Wells.
Yeah, that movie. It reminds me of that for some reason whenever I watch it. And the effects are really lame. I don't know, fucking watch it if you want. I think Soylent Green's a much better movie from the same era.
It's people.
I recently rewatched that movie, and I was shocked to find out that when he says that line, he doesn't yell it. Like, he actually whispers it to someone almost who's very close to him. He's like, "It's people. They're eating people." And then it ends. Like, it's an awesome ending. But it's been parodied so many times with the Scream.
Yeah.
That I think Phil Hartman did this to us. This is his fault. He did a great Charlton Heston. I used to love it when he did Charlton Heston because he got his physicality down when he Charlton Heston had this thing where he would walk around with his chest out, and he always wore these little tiny like the dude from Scooby-Doo with these little bandanas around his throat. Yeah, like at the end of the 60s and the early 70s, he always had to have some kind of. No, not even. It's like tiny. It's like a little bandana, little bandana-ette that you just tie around your neck throat, and it just looks so fucking uncomfortable. I just watched Airport, all the airport movies. Don't fucking ask me why.
Wow, why would you do that?
Because I'm a completionist, and I wanted to do it. And
no, Dave, it's pronounced masochist.
Well, the second one is the best one, and that's the one that Charlton Heston's in.
Okay.
I think it's Airport 75, as in 1975. And in lieu of the little bandana things, he wears just turtlenecks through the whole motherfucker. And, respect. But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about Charlton Heston. We're talking about Will Smith.
Yes.
And in the book, the character of Neville, the protagonist, he's just a regular dude. And that's kind of why that story works and why it's so relatable, right? But the movie I Am Legend did the same exact thing that Omega Man did. It's almost like they remade that movie instead of adapted the book, which is very strange to me. And like the Charlton Heston version, this Neville is a doctor scientist who, while living in isolation he's back in New York at least, while living in isolation in an otherwise desolate New York City that's only populated by people who have been transformed into these vampire creatures because of a virus. He's the only human left on Manhattan Island. and he's diligently trying to find a cure while fending off the hordes of the vampiric undead and surviving, right? None of that's in the book. In the book, it's just this lonely motherfucker with no hope of rescue that he can see, trying to survive and trying to not kill himself. And by day, one of his favorite hobbies is going out and hunting the vampires and killing them in their nests where they live, right? And in I Am Legend, in the movie, Will Smith does this so that he can get test subjects to try to come up with a cure serum thing. So he has a motivation aside from being cruel. Whatever. The original theatrical ending to this movie is terrible. The CG in this movie is fucking terrible, first off. I mean, I can't believe they're trying to make a sequel to it because everyone made fun of it. The CG is awful. At the end of this movie, Will Smith is cornered in his basement laboratory. He's working on this woman vampire. Her boyfriend vampire and a bunch of bad guys are coming through this plexiglass wall, and Will Smith pulls a grenade out, pulls the pin, runs at the bad guys, blows himself up, kills all of them, so that this woman and her kid, who are human, can survive and take this serum vial that he comes up with at the last minute to the last human outpost or whatever in Vermont. And that's how the movie ends, with the two of them driving to this like walled off town to deliver this blood sample. Well, the fucked up funny thing is that to make a sequel to this movie with Will Smith in it, they have to use the alternate ending that was included on the DVD because...
Wait a minute.
Otherwise, he's dead.
Wait. So the sequel depends on watching a version of the movie that's only available on, like, the video release?
You got it. Yes.
Why would you do that?
Because in that version, Neville survives. Now, in the book, Neville is taken prisoner by the vampires, right? And he wakes up and basically is put on trial. And he finds out that these creatures he's been indiscriminately killing, as if they're just brainless monsters, are actually feeling still human people.
They're people.
They're people. They're people. And it flips everything around on its head, because to them, he's a monster who invades their homes at night and drags them into the sunlight and has killed their friends, their wives, their husbands, their kids for no reason. And he finds out that what he thought he was doing by preserving his humanity and like fighting for the human race or whatever, he's actually been the monster this whole time, and they sentence him to death. And that's how the book ends. Downer, right? Well, in the alternate ending to the movie, as the vampire bad guy is breaking in, he stops for a moment and he rubs his hand on the plexiglass and makes the shape of a butterfly. Well, this woman that he's been experimenting on, this woman vampire, she has a butterfly tattoo on her shoulder.
Wait, who rubs their hand on the glass?
The alpha vampire.
Oh, the vampire.
Who's attacking.
So he makes a butterfly, and then girl vampire's like, I have that tattoo.
Well, she's unconscious, but yeah. Neville puts it together, and he realizes that they're a couple, and that means that they have emotions, and that means that they have relationships, and that means that he's been a monster this whole time. He comes to a similar revelation as the Neville in the book. And instead of blowing everybody up, he wakes up the female vampire. She embraces her beau, and Neville apologizes. And let's get something clear. These evil vampires, they can't speak. They just shriek and hiss. It's fucking with these giant CG mouths. It's fucking ridiculous. But that's how they walk off. But he has her blood sample so he can make the serum. So then the three of them go to Vermont instead of just the woman and the kid.
But you
And
only know that
sequel.
if you watch the alternate ending. So
Yes.
the sequel is that's gonna be so confusing for anyone cause like I saw I Am Legend, and I saw the other ending, like
Yeah.
that's gonna make everybody's head spin.
I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know if they're going to re-release the original with some kind of caveat, you know?
They need a trailer with that guy. It's like, in a world where the ending you thought you knew no longer applies, this summer, retread
This summer.
a movie that didn't need to be remade with a different ending.
A movie you didn't care about the first time around is back with a new ending and a new sequel. If they get Chris Rock, though, it could be okay. If Chris Rock is in it, I'll go see it. That's what's happening.
Oh, boy.
Fuck, man. What else? I don't know. I want to talk about Close Encounters. Can we talk about that real quick?
Sure. And like I saw the only thing I remember about that movie is the little song. So I don't know how much use I'm going to be on this, but
All right.
let's hear it.
Well, you should watch this movie again because it's pretty good. It's from that golden age of alien movies in the late 70s and early 80s, before like every alien movie had to be a horror movie, and you were allowed to have a little bit of optimism. I like this better than E.T.
Oh, I can't
lot.
stand E.T.
Yeah, I don't like E.T. either. We're going to do a whole episode on that.
Oh, boy.
I have some weird trauma associated with E.T. too, but we'll also get to that someday. Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out in 1977, directed by Steven Spielberg, and had Richard Dreyfuss, Terry Garr, and Melinda Dillon. This was Dreyfuss's second team up after Jaws with Spielberg. So, this movie is really well structured, all right? And it starts off with all these really cool vignettes, You see all these fighter planes that were lost in the Bermuda Triangle at the end of World War II. They show up in the middle of the desert, perfectly parked in rows as if they were made yesterday, but they're empty.
Huh.
Like there's still photos of the pilot's girlfriend stuck on the dash, on the control panel. No explanation as to why they're there. I mean, that's cool. That's intriguing, right? And then some other weird shit happens, and then like Richard Dreyfuss, and they're in a small town in Indiana. I think Muncie, actually. It's not that small, but Muncie. It's Muncie. He's an electrician, and there's been all kind of weird electrical shit going on. He goes out to investigate. He sees a UFO, and so do a bunch of cops and people, and they all start following it as it's flying around these highways and stuff. And then, they see it join up with two other UFOs, and they fly off, and a whole bunch of other people see it too. And it does a great job of not dwelling too long in one place and bouncing around from different characters' perspectives. And the ending really, the reason I find it very strange is because of that character, Roy, that Richard Dreyfuss plays. He's just a regular dude with a wife and kids and a house and in, every town USA in Indiana, right? And after this encounter that he has, he becomes obsessed not only with the UFOs, but it's as if he has something in his head that's drawing him to a place, right? And he starts sculpting this shape, and he can't help it. No matter what he's like, that's that famous scene where he sculpts it out of a pile of mashed potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
On his
I remember.
plate, right? and it's like this flat top tower. And then eventually he goes completely nuts and brings like a whole bunch of dirt and shit into the house and builds it in his living room. And the wife leaves him. Fucking, you're crazy. He doesn't work anymore. He's out of his mind. So she takes the kids and leaves. And then he embarks on a quest to find this. And it turns out to be Devil's Tower in Wyoming, right? They go there. The government's already there. That's the scene you're talking about, when the big mothership comes down and scientists communicate with the aliens using tones, and they play that fucking song, right? Well, the aliens bring back all these people that they've abducted over the years who haven't aged, which is fucked up to begin with. Like, we'll just gloss over what their experience is going to be like. But, like, all the pilots from those World War II planes come off the ship, right?
Oh.
Well, also, they invite Roy to go with them. I guess they just really like the cut of his jib. I don't know. Well, this dude who, up until a couple weeks ago, had a loving wife and kids and a house, and he just goes onto this spaceship. And I mean, what's going through this dude's head? Like, they're these little, like, kind of E.T. looking aliens, but, they're basically little gray men, stereotype aliens.
I thought they were, aren't they, like, real tall and lanky?
I don't think so, dude. I don't remember. I don't think so. They're not awesome. They're not. Okay. The point is, they're not human-y. They're like humanoid, but they're very not human, right? So, do they have pizza? Like, where are you gonna poop? Like, how do you know they're not gonna put you in a zoo, man? Like, they played a song, right? They played a song back and forth, and yeah, I think there's some bullshit. Like, they say some shit about how he's gonna be an ambassador for humankind or whatever. But so you destroy your house. You make your wife think you're absolutely insane. You abandon your children, and then you leave the planet, probably to never see them again, judging by how long they kept the World War II guys. Roy is a real piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, just speaking from experience, I don't know what someone would have to offer me to get me to just be like, yeah, I don't need to see my kids ever again. Yeah. I don't know if there is anything. So, like, I guess, like, he just didn't, like, his curiosity was so strong such that he was able to just leave everything behind. That's a bit nuts.
And, like, I know 1977, it's not like the 90s when everyone knew about abduction stories and shit, but they're going to do something weird to his butt. Like, there's going to be a probe, or they're going to, like, put a weird drill bit near his eyeball. I've seen all those I watched the X-Files. I know. I fucking understand. And his wife is, I think, Terry Garr, and that's fucked up. You can't just leave Terry Garr like that. No, you can't. It's wrong.
Yeah, I never really thought about it I definitely saw it when I was a kid, but I never thought about what that guy's leaving behind. Like, when I saw it the first time, I'm like, oh yeah, he wants to go with the aliens. Okay. I didn't question it at all.
And you get so caught up in that, all that showmanship, that big ending. And the woman's kid comes back to her, so that's happy. Yay. And yeah, you kind of gloss over it when you see it, but if you think about it, it's kind of fucked up. It's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, he sounds like a bad dad.
Bad dad, asshole, Richard Dreyfuss. I was going to talk about Little Shop Horrors, but I don't fucking feel like it. That ending sucked. The ending to the theatrical version was better because everybody fucking dies. Okay? And that stupid song that they added for the movie also sucked. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay. There you have it.
Did you ever see Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes?
Oh, God. Yes, I have. Oh, man. I saw that in a theater. I thought
really?
I thought it was going to be cool. I was excited for it. And then, I walked out of there, head down, really mad that I was just out that like $7 I just spent.
Did you make it through?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing,
This was
including.
'01. That came out in '01, so we would have been seniors, probably in high school. Wow. Marky Mark.
That was so bad. Like, I wanted to like it. I kept wanting to like it, and then I was teetering on the edge of being an apologist. Like, well, you know, it was kind of cool if you consider that. And then the ending happened, and I was like, no, this movie's trash. Oh,
That's why I brought it up, because I thought of it while I was thinking about movies with bad endings. Like, that's clearly not a good movie with a bad ending. It's just a bad movie with a worse
that's a bad movie with
ending.
with a titanically stupid ending.
Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to lay it out?
Yeah, guy. I mean, it's fucking. I don't know. Go ahead.
I mean, we both like Planet of the Apes, classic movie, great story, and
Charlton Heston again.
Charlton Heston. It's people. One of the all-time classic twist endings. One of the best twist endings to ever do it.
Yeah.
When he's on the beach and he's on the Planet of the Apes and he sees the Statue of Liberty coming out of the sand and he's like, "Oh my God!" and he realizes he's on Earth. He's not on some distant planet. What a mind job! Really well done version of a twist ending. Well, after Mark Wahlberg heavily breathes his way through 2 hours of nonsense and like seriously, his whole performance is just him like,
good makeup though.
Yeah, the makeup was incredible.
Rick Baker did amazing stuff.
It was great. Yeah.
So,
but Mark Wahlberg tries to get away. He finds his way back onto some ship. He slips into some goddamn wormhole or whatever event,
whatever nonsense
the writers came up with to get him there in the first place, and he presumably finds his way home, back to his home planet, right? And he crashes in Washington, D.C., and of course, there's a disturbance in D.C. when something violates that airspace. Like a little man in a pod crashes down onto the ground, and the police come out. There's all these cop cars, and they're screeching to a halt, and all these officers start pouring out of the cars, and they're like, "Freeze! Don't move!" And he looks up and he realizes that all the cops are apes. They're all gorillas, and they're pointing their gorilla-made revolvers at him, wearing their gorilla-sized cop outfits, and
which look exactly like our cop,
which look identical to like
or whatever.
Yes, and he happens to be at the Lincoln Memorial, and then the camera slowly pans up, and it's like the feet of the Abraham Lincoln, and they get up to the top, and you see that Abraham Lincoln is actually Abraham Lincoln, and that
it's an ape. It's an ape face.
Yes, it's an ape face on Abraham Lincoln, and you realize that something happened, something went wrong in all of humanity's history. Instead of human beings, it was actually ape kind that lived.
Yeah, is that how you're supposed to read it? Because I was at a loss.
I would imagine so, because like why do we have the Lincoln Memorial? Because Abraham Lincoln was like a very accomplished guy and a good president, and he freed the slaves, and they fought the Civil War, and like, so why would the apes have it? In the same exact scenario.
If you try to go by some kind of logic of this film, he goes through this wormhole thing, and if he is in fact still on Earth as Charlton Heston was in the original, then that means that this wormhole like shoots you into the future by like a couple millennia, right? So I didn't know if when he went through it the second time, it just did the same thing.
Did he go forward or backward?
I don't know. Like, did he go forward and this is just and the Planet of the Apes literally followed the exact same timeline?
I don't know, man.
Either way, it's fucking stupid. There's no way to explain why an ape civilization has an exact apey version of Washington D.C. It makes no fucking sense.
Just try
It's a
to
terrible
imagine
ending.
Abraham Lincoln standing there in a field delivering the Gettysburg Address. You know,
I want to see the
score.
Statue of Liberty. I want to see what the Statue of Liberty looks like in this. Are their hair on the arm?
Maybe.
Is their fur on the arm holding the torch?
Do
I need to know.
French apes have more hair than like USA apes?
Yes.
Yeah, they gotta.
They got. Otherwise, what's the point?
Oh my God.
Oh, that was horrible. That was a lot of terrible endings. There's a lot of lists of movies with bad endings, and one of the ones that comes up on them a lot is The Mist, the Stephen King adaptation. Don't listen to them. Those lists are liars. Ranker is a liar. Tom informed me earlier that he's never seen The Mist.
Nope.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to ruin it for you. But it's it's a great ending. It's a real cheery ending, and as a father, you're really going to like it.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's one of the most gut-wrenching endings to a movie ever.
Oh man.
I think, that's the reason I think it shows up on the lists a lot, is because people they genuinely, it upsets them.
So it's not a bad ending, it's just not a happy ending.
It's an ending that you emotionally are not going to like.
Ugh.
But it's a really good ending.
All right, yeah. I mean, like happy isn't always good when it comes to ending a movie. You know, sometimes you got to hit them where it hurts.
Is there anything we missed?
God, there's probably buckets of things we missed. But as far as good movies, well, mostly good movies with bad endings. I think that's. I think we made a dent.
You know what? I think it's a toss-up, but I think I don't know. I guess Psycho is the best movie on this list, huh?
Yeah, I mean that and and Blade Runner. Blade Runner is like one of my all-time favorites. I think technically, yeah, Psycho's probably a better movie, but yeah, Blade Runner's way up there for me.
I think Superman deserved something better.
It did.
You know, it's fucked up too. If I remember correctly, in the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2, he does that shit again.
What? It's this
flying
same ending
around the world thing. No, he uses the flying around the world trick.
Really?
I think so. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen that. It's a very different movie. You should check it out if you get a chance.
Okay, that was Superman.
We have it on our
Returns,
we have it
right?
No, that's Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut.
Oh, okay.
We have it on our super secret server.
Got it. Yeah, I'll have to watch that. I only ever saw the original second one. Yeah,
it's terrible in comparison to what Richard Donner wanted to do. He got, I don't know if you know the lore, but he had filmed everything he needed, or almost everything he needed, for the second movie while he was filming the first one.
Oh.
So they filmed them kind of back to back almost, right? Well, as the first one became a monstrous hit and this huge thing, as Donner was working on cutting together the second one, the studio got involved and they didn't like it. And they wanted it to be more kid-friendly and appeal more to families. And they wanted it to be lighter and funnier. So they fired Richard Donner. And somebody else came in and they reshot and shot new footage. And you got what we got with the theatrical cut of Superman 2. You know, all that shit at at Niagara Falls and that honeymoon suite with Lois and all that stuff. None of that is in the Richard Donner cut. None of that was supposed to be in it. Like, it's a much more straightforward film without all that corny shit in it. He cuts out a lot of the the corny bad guy lines, Zod and his crew.
Zod.
And he makes them
That's
makes
right.
them a little scarier and a little less cheesy. And it's just worth seeing. And the ending's different. A lot of it's different.
Is
a lot
that the
of it's
one
different.
with Terrence Stamp?
Terrence Stamp?
I think. Okay. Yeah, it's like got the 3 Kryptonians come after him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
One of them's Terrence Stamp.
Is that Zod? Is that
I think
his
that's-
name?
I think that's
Is that
Zod.
the actor's name? I'm so bad with fucking character actor names. I'm the worst. Okay, yeah, that's Zod.
That's
and the
Zod.
woman was the one from Conan.
Wait, the blonde?
No, the evil woman. from Conan.
She was. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think she might have played Evil Lynn too in Masters of the Universe, but I might be wrong on that.
Oh
They have the same kind of vibe
Masters
going
of
on.
the Universe.
Dolph. That had a good ending. That was a great movie. Fuck people. I don't give a shit. That was an awesome movie. That was such an 80s-tastic movie, man.
I
The
loved
fucking-
it, and I
remember.
I can't remember if it's because I was a kid and it came out in the 80s, and I used to pretend to be He-Man when I was a toddler. I don't know if that movie holds up. I want to think it does.
I've seen it. I watched it during the pandemic, right? I will say it holds up. And you know why I think we liked it so much when we were kids? Because I liked it a lot too. I didn't really watch the cartoon much. I loved the movie. I think it resonated because of the very reason people criticize it. Because most of it takes place in a suburb in the 80s.
Oh, that was our world. Yeah.
Yeah, it was almost like this cartoon world that we saw every day, after school, all of a sudden manifested as the Russian from Rocky IV and just showed up in our backyard. And the idea that a portal could open on Pine Street, amidst these suburban tree-lined homes, looking like the neighborhood out of Big, and Skeletor comes through on his raft thing. It's just wild
his
to
little
think about for a
hovercraft.
kid. Yeah, man. I mean, it's easy to make fun of a lot of that shit, but that was really fantasy fuel when we were kids. And a lot of the elements you make fun of, they were in a lot of movies back then, man. A lot of movies had a little person in a costume.
Oh, Billy Barty.
Yeah, dude. And Willow, Legend, those movies all had that same kind of, I think they all fit in that same category. They were almost like science fiction fantasy, and I think that was the vibe that Masters of the Universe was going for. But I think it made it really relatable to tweens, of the time. I don't know. I don't think it would hold up if you showed it to kids today. And
No. God, no.
And Dolph really, man, they really did not give him much to wear. They could have
He's got shoulder pads.
got shoulder pads with a cape attached to them and a cod piece going on and boots. I mean, man, they could have gave the motherfucker some pants, dude. I get it. He's ripped and all oiled up and shit, but they could have gave him a man some pants. Give He-Man pants.
He-Man didn't wear pants, dude. That was
He wore
pretty accurate.
furry, fuzzy britches. Fuzzy. What's her name in Shawshank? He wore
How
fuzzy
about you,
britches.
fuzzy britches?
Fuck, now I gotta go watch Shawshank. Fuck, man.